Hi, my name is Dana Francisco. My research proposal is about increasing time on task for learning disabled students in the classroom. I have been working with elementary students over the past 5 years in inclusion, self contained, and general education classes. Throughout these past 5 years, I had the opportunity to observe many of the struggles that students with learning disabilities have with maintaining time on task in the classroom. I find it so disheartening to watch these students that are diagnosed with learning disabilities not be able to complete their work at times. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders defines learning disabled as when an individual's achievement on individually administered, standardized tests in reading, mathematics, or written expression is substantially below that expected for age, schooling, and level of intelligence. All of these experiences has persuaded me to address this issue and conduct research to see how self-management interventions can help benefit learning disabled students with staying on task in the classroom. Self-management interventions are being used nowadays in the classrooms to help support learning disabled students with increasing their time on task. By incorporating self-management interventions with learning disabled students in the classroom, research has shown a great impact on students' ability to maintain time on task. In other words, students that use self-management interventions themselves have shown a significant improvement with their time on task because it promotes behavior change in the classroom. In addition to increasing time on task, students' academic engagement has also been known to improve. The purpose of this study is to see to what extent do self-management interventions have on learning disabled children to help them stay on task in the classroom. By teaching learning disabled students self-management techniques, it will give them the responsibility for making their own observations and determining whether or not they have met the criteria for success. It is hypothesized that by incorporating self-management interventions in the classroom will significantly help learning disabled students with increasing their time on task. The participants for this study will be elementary students enrolled in the school that I currently work at in New York City. The students will be selected non-randomly using convenience sampling. This type of sampling was used for the study because participants with the needed characteristics needed to be selected on the basis of availability. The students chosen will be both boys and girls that have an individual education plan, an IEP that states they each have a learning disability. There will be a wide range of demographics for these students that will be chosen, which include Caucasian, Hispanic, Asian, African American, and other. In addition, all the students will also come from different socioeconomic backgrounds. This study that is being conducted is a comparative pre-test, post-test study. There is one major instrument that will be used in this study where data will be collected from. The instrument that will be used will be a survey that will be administered at the beginning and end of the study. It will assess student motivation using a 5-point Likert scale. The survey will measure each student's level of agreement and disagreement for how they feel about being motivated when it comes to completing their work in both math and ELA classes. There will be 15 statements and/or questions provided on the survey in which the students' answers will range from never, rarely, sometimes, often, and always. This will help the students' teachers gain an understanding for how each student feels about being motivated to complete their work in both math and ELA settings. These survey scores will be compared to see if each student's attitudes and opinions have changed from the beginning survey to the end survey. A paired t-test will be used to determine if the difference in scores from the pre-test administered at the start of the study are significantly different from the scores from the post-test at the end of the study. Each student will be provided with a self-management form and a motivator which will help them self-monitor their on-task or off-task performance in each of the two 45-minute class settings for math and ELA. The students will be taught how to use the motivator, which will emit a pulsing vibration using 20-second intervals for the first 5 minutes of the class, another 5 minutes in the middle of the class, and lastly another 5 minutes at the end of the class. The motivator, which can be seen in Figure 1, is an electronic device for the students to use for monitoring their attention for on-task or off-task performance in the classroom. The students will also be taught how to fill out their self-management form by placing a check mark for being on task or an X for being off task each time the motivator vibrates. The self-management form can be seen in the poster in Figure 2. At the end of each 45-minute math and ELA class, each student will tally up the number of times they remained on task by counting up the check marks. The total amount of tally marks for being on task in each class setting will be used to measure the outcome. There are two limitations for this study. One limitation has to deal with the sampling method chosen for this study. Ideally, I think stratified random sampling would be a better choice if I had a larger population to work with. I would be able to gather data from all of the possible elements within the population, as well as get more of a diversity using this type of sampling method. However, convenience sampling needed to be used for this study because of the smaller sample size I had to work with. The second limitation of this study deals with the survey that will be administered at the beginning and end of the study. The statements and/or questions provided on the survey are closed-ended, which can lead to limited outcomes. The students chosen for this study have to answer these statements and/or questions with answers ranging from never, rarely, sometimes, often, and always. I will never know what strategies each student used when they selected their answers for each statement or question. Thank you very much for listening.